Hello there. Thank you for taking a moment to watch this video, and on this specific training, I want to continue talking to you about the PhoneBurner integration with Outreach. At this point, you should have installed the PhoneBurner app into your Outreach org and made it available to all users or maybe some selected profiles. But now that you've got it installed, how do you start taking advantage of this? The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the dispositions in PhoneBurner match the dispositions that you have configured in Outreach. So from our settings menu, we're going to click on calls. From here, you're going to see a list of all of your call dispositions. And in order for PhoneBurner to complete any call activities or tasks in Outreach, we need to have a call disposition on our side that matches the call dispositions that you have in Outreach. My recommendation for you would be to create a PhoneBurner admin account to manage all of your users on the PhoneBurner system so that you can create a standard set of dispositions for all of your users that will be taking advantage of the PhoneBurner Power Dialer. So here I've pulled up a PhoneBurner admin account. I'm going to click on the initials in the upper right hand corner. I'm going to go to Dial Session under Settings. And from here I'm going to click on Dispositions. This is where you can go to manage all of your dispositions in the PhoneBurner system. What's great about how we manage dispositions on the PhoneBurner side is that it's not just one big list of all of your dispositions. You can break those dispositions down into different sets of dispositions. And within each set, we have different types of dispositions. We have the dialing set, which is the first set of buttons that you're going to see at the start of any call. And you have the live answer set, which is a second set of buttons that only show up after you've completed a live call. And you can have different buttons in each set. So here you can see I've got several sets in the dialing set section, and most of them have the same number of buttons, but as you can see here, one of them has an additional button. And in my live answer set, I've got a few different live answer sets, and each set has a different number of buttons in them. What this allows me to do is create a configuration in PhoneBurner so that when my reps initiate a dial session, they can specify exactly which type of calls they're making so that they're only looking at the buttons that make sense for those types of calls. And for you, you should have a default set of buttons that were already created in your account when you set up your PhoneBurner account. But for the sake of this training, I'm going to walk you through creating a new dialing set and a new live answer set. So I'm going to click on Add New Dialing Set. I'm going to call this my Outreach Training Set. And here you can see I have no dispositions. So for this specific set of dialing buttons, again, these are the first buttons that pop up at the start of each call. So these are buttons like voicemail, no answer, busy signal. You can see I'm starting with a blank slate. So let's jump back over to Outreach, and let's take, for example, no answer. We know that we need a no answer button on the PhoneBurner side. So I'm going to copy that button name, jump back over to PhoneBurner, add a new button. I'm going to name it no answer. The most important thing is the call status. Whatever you put in the call status here is what gets fed back to Outreach in order for us to complete that call activity. So I'm going to go ahead and save changes. Now I did that fairly quickly, and there are some settings within the dispositions that you may want to take advantage of. And for that, I'm going to create another button because I want to talk to you about some of those settings. Let's say, for example, sometimes when we click the no answer button, we only want to just mark that as no answer and move on to the next call. However, sometimes when we click the no answer button, we may also want to trigger an email, indicating to that contact that, hey, we just called you, but you didn't answer the phone. So I'm going to create an additional no answer button. I need the call status to be no answer. This has to match what I have in Outreach. However, I need some way of indicating to my team members when they're clicking this button that this button is a little bit different. And that's where the button label can differ from the call status. So in this case, I want my button label to be a little bit different. I want to indicate that this button is a no answer with email as opposed to just a standard no answer. And now I can go in here to my one-touch email settings and I can actually assign my no answer email to that disposition. and then I can save changes. Now, of course, there are a lot of settings that you can configure on these dispositions. I'm not going to go into all of those settings on this training, but feel free to watch some of the additional disposition training to take full advantage of all of the options. So now let's add one more button here. This new button is going to be our voicemail button, right? So if we call somebody and they don't answer, and we go to their voicemail, with PhoneBurner, we can drop a pre-recorded voicemail, and we don't have to wear our voice out over and over and over again. So let's jump back over to the disposition section, put in our left voicemail, and right here where it says voicemail in the settings, we can choose a specific voicemail, so we can actually assign a specific audio recording to be played with this specific disposition, or we can make this a little bit more dynamic and allow each rep to choose the voicemail at the start of each dial session. This is the most common option when leaving pre-recorded voicemails, because it allows you to have one button that is different every time you start a dial session. But just know you've got all of those options here. You can assign a specific audio file to the voicemail button, or you can make it dynamic. Now let's go ahead and save changes here. Now you'll notice that this button is green, indicating that it is more of a live style button. It is only going to become active if the team member has selected a voicemail and the call is directed to a voicemail box. Now you may have noticed another option in there regarding voicemail. Let's go ahead and click Add New Button. I'm going to name this one Left Voicemail. Again, I need the call status to match exactly what lives in Outreach. But let's go down to the voicemail settings and you'll see there's an option for a live voicemail. So let's say I want to have two voicemail buttons throughout the dial session. One for my team to use when leaving a pre-recorded voicemail that they selected at the start of the dial session, and another one that allows them to stay on the line, wait for the beep, and leave a live voicemail, a custom voicemail. Now, of course, I need there to be a distinction between these buttons. I don't want to change the call status, but the button label I want to be unique. So I'm just going to add the word live to my button label, indicating to my team members when they're in the dial session making calls, they have these options: no answer with email, left voicemail live. So they've got those four options right now. And of course, you can create as many of these buttons as you want or need to help you and your organization be as effective and efficient with your time. So that's the dialing set. But what about the live answer set? Let's jump back over to our dispositions. And let's go down to the live answer sets and let's create a new live answer set. We're going to call this one Outreach Training as well, and I'm going to save changes. Again, I'm taken to a page where I have no buttons and I can start from scratch. So I'm going to click on Add New Button. I'm going to jump back over to Outreach. And let's say, for example, with this specific set, there's only a couple live answer outcomes that I want my team using. Maybe it's meeting set. So I'm going to grab the answer-meeting set, jump back over to my dial session settings, and I'm going to update the button label, which will automatically copy down the call status and notes. Now, obviously, notes is not relevant for what we're doing here. And again, I can trigger emails on these if I want. If I go through the approval process, I could also potentially trigger a text message. Most of these settings are not going to be relevant for you because you're using the Outreach system to help you manage your data. But if you're using the PhoneBurner CRM to help you manage and organize your data, there's a lot more settings that you need to consider. But I'm not going to bore you with those. Let's go ahead and save changes. Again, if we wanted to have two buttons that log the same disposition in Outreach, we could do that by just creating additional buttons with different settings in PhoneBurner, and we'd want to make sure that we update the button name to match what that button is going to do when it's clicked. So let's just go ahead and add one more button here. Let's go ahead and cancel out of this. Let's say we need a not interested button. So we're going to copy this one, and we're going to add a new button. If we want this to trigger an email, of course, we can trigger an email here as well. Let's go ahead and save changes. And of course, course, you can go through here and just create as many buttons as you need. If we go back to our main Dispositions page, you'll see that I now have an outreach training dialing set and an outreach training live answer set. You'll notice that I have 4 buttons in the dialing set, 2 buttons in the live answer set. Now, if I'm part of a team, I may want to make sure that these buttons are shared with my organization. So I'm going to click the share button for each of these sets. That way my team can start taking advantage of these buttons when they start their dial session. That's it for this specific training. It was a little longer than I wanted it to be, but there's a lot to cover to ensure that your dispositions are configured properly on PhoneBurner to log those call outcomes back in Outreach. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and happy dialing.